Okay, so we're now looking at Genesis with the story of Abraham. And we were just talking, Mia and I, about the writings of Abraham. This is a really good book if you wanted to acquire something that talks more deeply and to connect him to Noah and the like. It's a very good resource to have. And Mia, you were just speaking before I forgot to record, so we'll continue on.
I was carrying on from, the first few books of Genesis and how we've had the flood and we had the Nephilim on the earth, and yet we know they've come through. And I was saying how, Daniel was told to close up the book until the end time. And everything will be revealed, and how we're definitely living in that, of the dots are lining up with the impact of the Nephilim on the earth, who were still on the earth after the flood.
Yeah.
And the Targum, this reading mentions that, how Og came through, but we clearly know that with David going up against Goliath. We know that about the who was the king, a big king. He had the big beard.
Nimrod?
No, it was after.
He had the big beard, like the bed that he slept in, and they measured it out. Yeah, I can't remember.
Og. That's the same one that came through on the art that they talked about in the Targum today.
Yeah.
Forgotten his name, but
I know.
A half-breed. That's what I think I'm realizing. There are half-breeds everywhere.
Yeah. And they are on the world too today as well. They're probably not as tall or obvious as they were back then. So we've got the serpent seed line that came from Cain, which bred with Eve. And then we've got the righteous line that God put his Torah into and taught. That's why they're called the righteous, which is Abraham. It starts from this, again, now the covenant, which we're going to read today. Then we've got the Nephilim, which are the produce of the fallen angels that came down. And then we've got everybody else. So there's 4 bloodlines, really. The Bible follows the 3 of them.
Actually, something just said to me this morning, because I said it's like there's a big merger with the Nephilim and the Cain, the seed of Cain, and he said something, oh, actually that's quite apparent. So we would imagine that the Nephilim half-bred with Cain's seed on the earth, not the seed coming from Seth.
Correct.
Yeah.
However, I do believe a lot of them did also. In the ancient books, it does talk about that very openly, but I also believe that the righteous seed also were taken by it, because when you read the books of Enoch, he says they lived up the top of a hill, a mountain or hill, and he says, do not go down, do not assimilate with them, because you will. If you go down there, it is so enjoyable and so fun, you're going to assimilate and you'll never come back. You are going to, it will be to your demise, and that's what happened. And he had many kids, and most of them assimilated in. So I do believe that would have happened. But this is why Nimrod, I think, is so, there's a lot of emphasis, even to this very day. He's known as Zeus, he's known as a lot of those Greek gods, because he was a man of renown. Okay, it says that even in the King James. The men of renown are the Nephilim in Genesis 6. Okay, so he had that bloodline, plus he also had the Cain bloodline. So he was the combination of both. Yeah. So he had the might, the stature, and he, as well as he had the wicked bloodline to do evil. And also he had the vestures, he had the garments that God made, Adam and Eve, in the garden, and the cloak and the rod. So he had those things which gave him incredible amount. That's why he could achieve anything that he put his mind to, and that's why God stopped the Tower Babel and confounded the languages, because he had to somehow subdue this guy.
Yeah. And that's come from Ham.
Yes. Which came from Naam, which came from all the way up through to Cain. Yeah. Yeah. So
But yeah, we know, like the time of Daniel, seal it up until the time, and now it's like, we've just got so much. Yeah, I think I'm going to unfold that it's going to be like, whoa, it's weird now, but whoa, hold on.
Yeah,
And
now
just reading through the book of Joshua, it's like when oh my goodness, Phineas chased down Balaam. I was like, whoa, that's a little bit weird. There's so many moments reading that book, like that is supernatural, the stuff that was going on. When Phineas
yeah,
stabbed the two people, they put the tribes were being infiltrated by the world outside, and Phineas put a stop to it by stabbing the two people, a Hebrew king and a queen, effectively a princess from the outside world, but he carried them round on his sword for like a distance of, we worked out, my hubby and I, about 12 k's around all the tribes, and he was a priest, and the blood did not drip down on him. The blood was thickened, and they didn't die until he had finished carrying them around as an example of, no, this has to stop. We can't be infiltrated by the outside world.
and that all came from, and I can relate that through to today. This is a different story that we're talking about. This is about when the Israelites were in the desert, when Balaam and Balak, he was told to curse them. He couldn't curse them. He could only bless them. But he said, I'll tell you what, I can't curse them, but they can curse themselves. Well, how do we do that? Okay, let's put a temptation up and let them choose to do it. Now, and from that, them cursing themselves, many thousands of people died. So how different is that today? Have we not cursed ourselves today by taking an injection? And this is it. You see, if you don't know God's ways, you will fall for the traps of the devil, and it will be to your demise and your family's demise. So it is for your own, safety, really, that God has these things. Do not put anything into your body that is foreign. It's sorcery. And that goes through even to the food laws, the scavengers of the earth. We're not to eat them because they eat up all the dead and the waste. So if you're going to eat them, they become you. So you become them. They go in you, and that becomes part of you. So you're breaking your body down. We know about pig and the worms and everything like that now. It's quite well documented. But God has these things in place, not to be a bully, but because it's for our own good. He made us. He knows what will make us prosper and live a good, healthy life. So if we know these things, how could you be fooled to take something else and to inject your body with substances that you don't know what they are? And that goes with everything, chemicals, really, at the end of the day. Everything's in nature. But there's lessons in that, you see, and we're going through that today.
Yeah.
Cursing ourselves because we don't know what we do. Yeah. Anyway, we better get onto the reading. We've gone off track. So, okay, we're going to be doing the story of Abraham. And hang on, I need to screen share. How do I do that? Here, screen share. So we're going to be going to, I've got it up here, to a portion Lech Lecha, which is Genesis 12 to 17. And there's a couple of other readings. If we get time, we'll do them because I find them wonderful.
Means get out, does it?
Pardon?
Lech
Lecha?
What is it called? The title?
I
think it means get out. I think it's set up the top there.
Right. Go out. Yeah. Okay.
Go forth.
So just to give a little bit of background knowledge, it's not in our Bibles. Abraham was a little child. He was threatened to take over Nimrod. So his mother took him. He lived in a cave for a couple of years, and then he ended up living with Noah, Shem, and the family, and learned the ways of the ancient. He learnt the order of the Most High, the calendar, his ways. Wow, it would have been amazing. Anyway, and then he was set forth to go back to his father's house, which is what he's done now. He's going back into where his father is with Nimrod. And so much of this is not in our Bible of the story. It's a shame, but we'll be doing some readings to fill you guys in if you're interested in that. Okay, we'll start now, hey? The call of Abram.
Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him.
Okay, so he went to his father's house where Nimrod was. They had a showdown. He was thrown on the fire, and he survived it because the Lord was with him. And then he ended up speaking with the house, which was many people there in Ur, and from that many came with him. And now he's leaving. The God has called him to now come out from the country, and he was going to bless him. This is probably when he had that vision that I read the other day of him. Hey, Anne, how are you?
Good. Sorry, I'm late.
There's also a story, Kylie, about when Abraham was born and his father worked for Nimrod. Was it Nimrod or Nimrod's dad? Be Nimrod.
Yes, he was the president of his estate. Yeah.
Yeah. And when the men of the palace came to celebrate with him the birth of Abraham, when they left, they saw that star gobble up other stars, and they had to tell Nimrod. So Nimrod ordered that Terah brought Abraham to the palace, which he didn't do. He brought one of his other children from a different mother. Yeah. And right in front of his very eyes, Nimrod slammed that baby, killed that baby, because he was trying to get rid of Abraham.
Yes, and that's why they left. And the mother thought, right, we can't stay. So she went and sought a cave out and lived in it. And Abram would bring her food and that. But then one day, Terah, the father, would bring her food. And then one day, an angel actually came and got Abraham and took him to Noah. And she just thought her little boy had wandered away. She didn't even know where he was until he walked up many years later. She would have been just astounded to see her son was alive and thriving. And yeah. So Nimrod's house, that whole worshipped idols, things made of wood, things that don't speak, that have no power. So there's a lot that went on there. There's a lot that Abraham dismantled them and was very unliked because of it. But, he proved a point. Yeah. You say you should worship which created you and made you and gave you breath and created this whole world, not something made of wood that can't speak or save you.
75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on, still going toward the Negeb. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake he dealt well with Abram. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife, take her and go. And Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. So Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the Negeb. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. And he journeyed on from the Negeb as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had made an altar at the first.
Just a little bit of a background there, because only giving the outline. When he went into Egypt, and he said it was his sister, an angel told him to do that. It was probably the Lord. So he did, and yeah, they were all afflicted because they took her, which means that they couldn't actually have intercourse with their wives, all of them in the land, including the beasts. It's quite funny. So they knew something was up. Once they realized it, they knew then that the God of Abraham was a true living God, and he sees all, because they took somebody else's wife. Even though they didn't know, because I was told it was the sister. So it wasn't their fault, but God created the situation. He allowed all these things to play out, because when they realized that, and they realized Abram, we're sort of told in our scriptures that he was getting rid of them, go. No, they actually honored Abram, and he stayed there for a length of time. A good length of time. I can't remember exactly, but I'm sort of thinking a couple of years, maybe it was more than that. And all of Egypt was following Torah. All of Egypt followed God's ways. They honored him. That's why he was very rich in livestock, silver and gold. That was the beginning of him really flourishing in his own assets, was because of their journey to Egypt. Because you think about it beforehand, there was a famine. He could have bought anything for anything. He couldn't. That's why he went down to Egypt, because they were in need and they didn't have much. They'd just come from and left what they had. It was through Egypt. Egypt was very, very good to them. And yeah, the whole place honored him like he was a jolly king. Yeah. So there's a lot more in it. And why? Because he was following God's ways, and he taught them God's ways, and they could see the wisdom and everything, and they wanted the blessings. So it flourished. Egypt absolutely flourished.
Can I just ask a question? Why would God allow a husband and wife to do that kind of adultery type? Because did Pharaoh sleep with her?
No. He was impotent. He couldn't.
Oh.
That all the men in the country were limp, and the cattle.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right.
He protected her, and he promised that he would, and that's how he did it. He's got a bit of a sense of humor.
Wow. Okay.
So
and it was done to show. It was done to show them their. So explain why it was done again. What it actually meant to Pharaoh. What they actually saw.
that their God, the God of Abraham and Sarah, is alive. He's real. He's not made of stone or wood. He's not. He's a living God, and he's protected Sarah and protected him from doing anything, which is the greatest thing, really, because he would have done it because he was naive. He could take who he likes. He's the king. He's the emperor. He's the pharaoh. So, and she's single. Why not? You know, that's the custom. So, but through God allowing that to happen, he couldn't sin. Sarah kept safe, and they could see the power of God. So he had a plan all the way through. And
even Abraham did it to protect himself. It was God did that.
yes, he protected everybody. Yes.
Yeah.
And they loved him because of that, and they could see that. And this is paving the way for when his great-grandkids and grandson Isaac go into Egypt. You know, they remembered these things. They remembered these times. You know, they were spoken of. Yeah. So.
There must be a tune in Egypt somewhere, because it was Moshe going before the Egyptian king.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Well, even, you know, Jacob, you know, he was one of the 12 boys. And between Jacob and then they all came down, there was about 250 years max that they were there for. It says in the Bible 450 years. No, it was 450 years from Abraham being given the prophecy to them coming out. So you got Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then the 12 boys, all of that, and then them going in, and then 150, 200, maybe 250. I doubt that. It is written there actually in the Targum. I've done the sums for when they come out. So, yeah.
Of Egypt.
Yes. So it took that time frame from Joseph to, it only takes 2 or 3 generations to completely have a whole new world.
Yeah, what is the time frame from Noah to Abraham?
Well, Noah was around when Abraham was a little boy. He lived with them.
Noah lived to 300 and something years old, didn't he?
I'll have to look it up. I don't know on the top of my head.
No,
He lived longer.
Oh, yeah,
Longer. He was 300 years when he had
600 into the ark.
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes,
So no. So after Noah, though, the ages weren't as high as, but they were still in the hundreds.
Yep, low hundreds. Yep, some of them lived longer, but yeah. Yeah, I think God made it up to around about 120, and then it goes to 70. But we're still living to over 100 if you look after yourself. Okay.
And there Abram called upon the name of the Lord. And Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support both of them dwelling together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. At that time the Canaanites and the Perizzites were dwelling in the land. Then Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the left hand, then I will go to the right, or if you take the right hand, then I will go to the left." And Lot lifted up his eyes and saw that the Jordan Valley was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt in the direction of Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself all the Jordan Valley, and Lot journeyed east. Thus they separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities of the valley, and moved his tent as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, "Lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see I will give to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. Arise, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give it to you." So Abram moved his tent and came and settled by the oaks of Mamre, which are at Hebron, and there he built an altar to the Lord. In the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of Goyim. These kings made war with Bera king of Sodom, Birsha king of Gomorrah, Shinab king of Admah, Shemeber king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. And all these joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Sheva Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir as far as El Paran on the border of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En-Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and defeated all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites who were dwelling in Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, went out, and they joined battle in the valley of Siddim with Chedorlaomer king of Elam, Tidal king of Goyim, Amraphel king of Shinar, and Arioch king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of bitumen pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them, and the rest fled to the hill country. So the enemy took all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their provisions, and went their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who was dwelling in Sodom, and his possessions, and went their way. Then one who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew, who was living by the oaks of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and of Aner. These were allies of Abram. When Abram heard that his kinsman had been taken captive, he led forth his trained men, born in his house, 318 of them, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And he divided his forces against them by night, he and his servants, and defeated them and pursued them to Hobah, north of Damascus. Then he brought back all the possessions, and also brought back his kinsman Lot with his possessions, and the women and the people. After his return from the defeat of Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Sheva, that is the king's valley. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. And he blessed him and said,
Okay, we're getting on a bit there. Do you guys want to comment on anything there?
Yeah, it's weird that they went separate ways and then they came back like that.
Well, Lot got caught up in a war and taken hostage, and his family. So Abram. Now, do you remember Mia, who Abram was talking to, who went and got him, got Lot for him, rescued him?
Sorry, I missed that.
So because we've got Melchizedek coming out, that's Shem, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but just getting back to this war that happened, a lot got caught up in it. It was actually Og was involved in getting, he went and saw Abram, which is the giant that was on the ark that hung on to the ark, and Noah fed him through a window. So this is where the giant lineage came. So he was actually a really nice guy, very, very likable in his own right. He pops up a lot through the ancient books. And he is in our scriptures, but you just see the name and you've got no idea who or what he is. But it was him that actually rescued Lot.
A lot.
Yeah, and there's, yeah. So, yeah, now getting back, now it's changing and we're going into Melchizedek. Melchizedek, there's a priesthood, Zadok priesthood. Melchi is king. Zadok is priest. This is the order of the ancient. And it says in our Bibles that we are kings and priests with him. Now, the Melchizedek order, which is the order of the ancient, existed from Adam and Eve until they came out of Egypt, and then Yah set up the Levitical priesthood. The Essenes and those of like Mary and Elizabeth's family, talking about Jesus' time, were all of the order of Melchizedek. They stayed outside the system, even the Levitical system that God made. It still always existed. When Yahusha, Jesus, came, many people don't know this, but he actually was appointed one of the 22 high priests. And I've got the writings of it, and they all knew exactly who he was and who Mary was and what happened. Now, he was murdered, but he was the high priest. That's why he could talk in the temple and open up the book of Isaiah and speak from it. You can't do that unless you're an ordained priest of the Levitical order. And he was of the Melchizedek order. We know that he was of the line of Judah, right? You've got to discount Joseph because it was his stepdad. You've got to go through the bloodline, which was Mary. And Mary's mum and dad were Levitical and Judah. It was a combination of both. Judah, King David, Melchizedek. Melchi, king. Zadok, priest, through the Levitical lineage. He was a combination in flesh of the two bloodlines.
And John the Baptist was from Levitical, and that's when he baptized him.
Yeah, he was. And Mary and Elizabeth were related. So that's proof of the Levitical priesthood lineage. So God created this priesthood, the Levites. They were obvious. They ran the temples, you know, they had the Ark of the Covenant with them. They carried it. But there's also a kingly, which was the Levite, but there's also the kingly line, the Melchi line, which is came through Judah, and it's been prophesied through all the ancient prophets that he will come through that lineage. So when we go back to the first time it is mentioned, which is now, he was Melchizedek. So we're talking Shem. He is the son of Noah, pure bloodline lineage. And he taught God's ways. And where he lived in Salem, which is Jerusalem now, which is house of peace, Salem is peace, he was the original high priest. He was king and priest. He was the combination. And then when we get to Yahusha, he was the combination as well. And he says, we are all kings and priests if we come into the order of the ancient, which is his ways, which is keeping Torah, which is walking independently under the Father, not under anyone else. We are kings and we are priests under him. So this is the first time it is mentioned. And you're right, it was Shem that of who he was, but he was the Melchizedek. And it's mentioned in there because this is, yeah, he kept God's ways and he taught Abram. So he knew him. And so here he was meeting him and having bread and wine. So it was a feast date. And he came out to see Abram because he was near him. He'd been traveling all these years after living with them into Ur and then making his way out and went to Egypt for a period of time, came out. So all of these things are happening and now they're meeting up. They did also meet up when they came from Ur. Abram actually went straight there and then he went on. But this time Melchizedek comes out to where he is for Passover. And they're having the bread and the wine. So when you read about Jesus, the Last Supper, and he gives the bread and the wine, see the resemblance of Melchizedek. These things do not change. They happen every year. They repeat. But we only get little glimpses of it in the Bible, just little glimpses.
What was it called Passover? Because the Passover hadn't happened here.
Well, it's not called Passover, but we know it is, but we call it Passover now. But it is his feast date. It's the 15th of Nisan. It would have been a full moon. But this, you see, they would have been in the new year that started 6 months prior, in the 1st of Tishri. That was the first month. Now it's not. It's the 7th month because, you know, when they came out of Egypt, they made the first 6 months later. There's 2 sets of seasons. There's the spring and the autumn. Difficult in New Zealand because we're the opposite. Spring is when it's the autumn and vice versa. But this would have been in our spring, their autumn, Passover, which we're coming into. So they were having Passover together. They were doing the bread and the wine. And, you know, it was the same time that Cain murdered Abel. It was on Passover when the blood was spilt out on the land.
Wow.
Cain murdered Abel and spilt his blood, and the blood of the land cries out innocence of what has happened to him. Isn't it interesting that all these years we still do Passover and represent the blood and the wine, you know, because Yahusha, you see, is going to be the ultimate one that corrects all these things, and he has done that. So they look forward to the cross. Adam was told when he was taken out of the garden, he if you read it's on my ancient book club, but if you read the books there, the Adam and Eve books, he tried so many times to murder himself, to commit suicide. He drowned himself and threw himself off a cliff. He did all these things, and Jesus said, enough, stop it. You've got to stop doing this. I will come, I will, and that's why you go through the waters. It's all representative of what Adam went through. You know, I will do these things. I will cleanse what you've done, but I can't do it right now because there's a clock and there's a time frame. But at the appointed time, I will come for you, Adam, and I will bring you out of this again and bring you back into the garden. But unfortunately, what you've done, there's got to be recompense. My Father has his time, and I know that I will come and I will cleanse and I will go through the waters and you know, be speared and do all these things that you've done to yourself. I'll do it to me, to take back and to correct what you have done, because I love you and we'll make this good again. And this is what happened. So all these things are just repeats and repeats because they're keeping in memory. They know the Savior's coming. It's coming. Melchizedek did it. He's coming. And so when Yahusha came and he died on that cross and his blood was poured out, he did that for Adam. He did it for all of us because we're all his kids. So we look back to that. They all looked forward to that.
So the death of Abel, that was innocent blood.
Yes.
So that's, I didn't, yeah, and yeah. So that's sort of like even from the beginning, way back then, was the blood being sacrificed.
Yes, on Passover.
No?
Yeah. But they did Passover before then because they were doing Passover. They were doing it. These are his systems. This is his calendar. So, yeah.
I don't have very good internet, sorry, out here.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Blessed be Abram by God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, give me the persons, but take the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted my hand to the Lord, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I would not take a thread or a sandal strap or anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. I will take nothing but what the young men have eaten, and the share of the men who went with me. Let Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre take their share. After these things the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Fear not, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. But Abram said, O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, you have given me no offspring, and a member of my household will be my heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. This man shall not be your heir, Your very own son shall be your heir. And he brought him outside and said, Look toward heaven and number the stars if you are able to number them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. And he believed the Lord, and he counted it to him as righteousness. And he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out from Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess. But he said, O Lord God, how am I to know that I shall possess it? He said to him, Bring me a heifer 3 years old, a female goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he brought him all these, cut them in half, and laid each half over against the other. But he did not cut the birds in half. And when birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell on Abram. And behold, dreadful and great darkness fell upon him. Then the Lord said to Abram, Know for certain that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. As for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age. And they shall come back here in the 4th generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun had gone down and it was dark, behold, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch passed between these pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your offspring I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the
Yeah,
Canaanites, the Girgashites, and
I'll just have a look at that for you.
the Jebusites. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram,
Okay. Yes, Sarah, Abram's wife, bore no children, and she had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. Now, that's really derogatory. She was not an Egyptian servant. She was the daughter of the Pharaoh. She was the most prized possession of Egypt. Hagar was. And she was deeply loved, actually, by Sarah and Abram. And she loved the Lord and his ways. And when they were departing Egypt, she couldn't bear to not be with them. So the Pharaoh said, go, yeah, go. Mm. So she is not just an Egyptian servant. She said, oh, well, I'd rather wash your feet than stay here. You know, she wanted to learn. She saw, you know, his ways were worthy. Yep. So that's who Hagar was. And when you realize that, it just puts a lot of other things into perspective. You know, they've really have not honored her really with what was due. I just want to just go back. We were just talking about Melchizedek, and it's got here in the Targum. And Melchizedek, who was Shem bar Noah, which means the son of Noah, king of Jerusalem, which is Jerusalem, came forth to meet Abram and came forth to him with bread and wine. And in that time he ministered before Eloah, which is the King Most High. So it talks about it in the Targum. And of course they take that out, don't they? In the King James say Melchizedek. Well, who's that and what's that? So common people don't really have that knowledge. But when you do know that he lived with them, it's just their mates, you know. Knew he was there, and let's do Passover together. So he made the journey to do that.
Behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go in to my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her servant, and gave her to Abram her husband as a wife. And he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. And Sarai said to Abram, May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me. But Abram said to Sarai, Behold, your servant is in your power. Do to her as you please. Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, Return to your mistress and submit to her. The angel of the Lord also said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring, so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Behold, you are pregnant and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. He shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, You are a God of seeing, for she said, Truly here I have seen him who looks after me. Therefore the well was called Bir Lahairoi. It lies between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, that I may make my covenant between me and you, and may multiply you greatly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. And I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. Every male throughout your generations, whether born in your house or bought with your money from any foreigner who is not of your offspring, both he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money shall surely be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh, an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And God said to Abraham, As for Sarai your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of peoples shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said to himself, Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. God said, No, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac.
Notice the names have changed. It
I
was
will
Sarah.
establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. As for
Sorry?
Notice the names change from Abram to Abraham, from
Yep.
Sarah. And then in this paragraph, it changes to Sarah.
Hmm.
What's the significance of the name changes?
Because it's got the name of Yah in it. Abraham, Sarah. That's how it's said. It's not, it's got Yah in it. Instead of Abram, it's Abraham. Because we have him in us. It's in our name. Yeah, he changes it and he puts the name and he says that he'll give us a new name. And same with Sarah, instead of Sarai, it's Sarah. Syria. It's YAH. And when you go back to the you know, AB, I actually wrote it somewhere. Where is it? ABYAHAM, I think is what it is meant to be, but we put an R in there. So it's Abraham, Sarah. It's Yah in it. Yeah.
For Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and multiply him greatly. He shall father 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year. When he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Then Abraham took Ishmael his son and all those born in his house or bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house. And he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very day, as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very day Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised. And all the men of his house, those born in the house and those bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him.
Just getting back to Hagar, she was the daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt. So she was a princess. But that Pharaoh was the son of Nimrod. So Hagar had a combination of serpent seed and Nephilim in her. That's why she could, in her prodigy, could never be the chosen race, I suppose.
From a donkey of a man.
Yeah. It says everything, doesn't it? So just a bit of understanding there. But Abraham and Ishmael, he loved Ishmael in the books. He actually went and visited him a lot when they moved out. And yeah, it's he was still very close to Abraham. But Isaac, of course, comes along next reading, and he's the chosen pure lineage, you see. It continues on.
And it's that classic how God blessed Cain when Cain did what he did, and he was going, oh, but God, and God said, well, no, not so. For 7 generations, you will not be able to be hurt, injured, otherwise the people will be cursed.
Yeah. So this distinction between righteous and unrighteous started with Eve, Adam and Eve, Cain and Seth. It was Abel, and then it came Seth. And it's even all the way through. Now we're looking at Abram, righteous and unrighteous, all from his loins. And you find as you go down through Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they might be in the pure lineage, but one will be righteous in their deeds and one not. And it just continues all the way down. It's not like God was with them all because they're all from that seed, correct, clean seed line. People still choose who they are and what they want to do. So, yeah, we're going to see that distinction all the way through to is today. How many choosing to follow the ancient path in his ways? Yet we may all have good lineage, bloodline. It matters somewhat, but it all comes down to your own choices in life. So we've got the Canaan line, Nimrod line, Hagar, serpent seed, and royal through Egypt. And then we're going down to Ishmael. So that's a line that's going to go off now. Yeah. But he made his covenant here with Abraham. He made the covenant with Abram that he will bless his seed. Okay. And we know as we go through, he only blesses if you obey, if you are in covenant with him, keeping the order of the ancient, which is his ways, which we will learn as we go through what they are. He's made the covenant with Abraham for circumcision. It's a physical thing. Remember I said to you the other day or the other week that with every covenant, there's something that happens. So for the covenant of not flooding the world through Noah, there's the rainbow. There's the covenant of the his generations will be as multiplied and as many as the sand of the sea and the stars in the sky. What did they do with that? They severed the heifer. They separated the parts. He walked between them. It talks more about that actually in the Apocalypse of Abraham, which I read, but I didn't read that part. I started just after it actually, because I didn't think people would be interested in it, because it's talking about severing the parts and placing them and how they walk between them. But that was the act that they did. So when he has to think about the covenant, he thinks about the rainbow. Or when he sees a rainbow, he thinks about that. Whenever he does these sacrifices that are continued on through all these centuries with the calves and the goats and the pigeons and the doves, as it goes through into the Levitical order, it continues on. They all think back to that covenant, that we are the children, we are the multitude of the sand on the shoreline and the stars. We all go back to that act that happened. And now we're talking about circumcision in your flesh, that he will always be with us and will be his people. It's another covenant. And it's the act of it. And we talk today, why is, you shouldn't do circumcision. But the thing is, we're now, 4,000 years from then, 5,000 years? We're still doing it to this day because we're still remembering the covenant and the promises from Yah that we are separated, we are holy, we are not common. We have this thing in our flesh, the fathers do, the boys do, that tells you that we are of him. So it's an act that they do to remember the covenant. It's not so much the act in itself, it's the signification of it, that they are one of the sands on the sea or the star in the sky, because we go back to Abraham from that promise.
That's your prophetic act, isn't it?
Yes. And to this very day, thousands of years later, guess what? And what we're still doing it to this very day. And that's with the origins of it, you see. And of course, the world is saying, oh, no, you can't do that. It's mean. It's this, it's that. Well, we've gone all this time now. And in the consummation of all things, where we are seeing everything how it is and where it's come from. And praise the Most High, we've kept it through the generations to now. Now they're trying to stop it. But this is the origins of it. Yeah. And, it talks about in Moshe and a lot of the prophets that it's not about circumcision of the skin, it's the circumcision of your heart. Well, we know that, but this is the origins of it. This is the meal that they have. This is the rainbow in the sky. This is the sacrifices of the heifer and the like. It's to remember the covenants. That's all it's for. So we don't forget who we are. We don't forget his ways. We don't forget his order, because we forget. That's why fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath. And it's not just the Saturday or the seventh day Sabbath, whether you do it on the moon or you do it every Saturday, however you choose to do it, or whether you do it in the Enochian calendar. It's the fact that we do it and we remember. Every week we are remembering to come aside. We are his children and meet with him. And this is the important, and it's not just that weekly Sabbath, which is called Moed. It's called a place of time, something that's holy. It's set apart. It's not common. This is what holy is. And his Sabbaths are holy. They're set apart times. The rainbow is holy. It's significant. Circumcision is because it comes back to the covenant. So these are things that are not common. They are God ordained. That's why they are holy. They're not earthy from the earth. They are from the Father, our Creator. So this is why we do them. With our own intellect, we can reason it out and question, say, oh, well, that's stupid, that's mean, that's this. Or fancy looking at a rainbow like that. You know, you can reason it with our own stupid human intellect, which is nothing compared to God, who created the whole freaking world and everything that exists in it, above it, below it, around it. How can we ever? So this is why the things are that they are. They're in order. And we only look through the keyhole of the door. We don't see really what's behind that door and the significance of it. But I tell you, what is below and he tells us to do, it is the same as what they're doing up there. And we know that through the order of Moshe, when he went up onto the firmament and he saw the temple up there. He saw all the ordinances and he had to make them exactly the same down here on earth. Spent 40 days twice looking at it, analyzing it, walking around it, picking it up, you know. So, yeah. There's reasons for it, and they are covenants. And the world wants us to lose and to break our covenants 100%, which once you learn these things, they're holy and they're beautiful. So,
holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty.
Yeah, and holy means not common, not normal, not usual. They're set apart for him. It's significant to him. And that's why you see these feasts, the calendar is so significant to observe. It's the order of our fathers. It's the order of him. It's the order of the ancient. Yeah. It's the Melchizedek order. Kings and priests. See, a king does the law. You know, in ancient times and through all these movies that you watch, you know, of the old days and on the horseback and the like, and the king is significant. King is law. You don't ever go against the law. Priest is holy. It's the law too. They're on the law, and the calendar, I suppose, is more the priests, because they do the feast dates and they bring people back to the Father through Yahushua HaMashiach, which is Jesus, our Messiah in English. So we are kings and we're priests. We stand on the law of who we are and on his trust denture that we're going to be learning what the laws are and implement them. That's kings. And priests is his calendar and salvation through our Messiah that they looked forward to, we look back to. Yeah. Who will come to be the King of Kings and the Lord, the priest of all priests. He is our living Lord. He never died, and he is the high priest that is never ever, he was murdered, but he rose again, conquered it. I mean, just think about that. He went down into hell, broke the chains asunder, sent the devils and everybody scattering, and brought back his people, his children, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Adam, Eve, all of them, and placed them back up like he promised he would do. And that's the first fruits, first resurrection. It was that. It's been done. The graves have broken open in Jerusalem and alike.
Should we carry on with the other ones?
Yeah.
Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and to him who has no might he increases strength. Even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Listen to me in silence, O coastlands. Let the peoples renew their strength. Let them approach, then let them speak. Let us together draw near for judgment. Who stirred up one from the east, whom victory meets at every step? He gives up nations before him, so that he tramples kings underfoot. He makes them like dust with his sword, like driven stubble with his bow. He pursues them and passes on safely, by paths his feet have not trod. Who has performed and done this, calling the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, the first, and with the last, I am he. The coastlands have seen and are afraid. The ends of the earth tremble. They have drawn near and come. Everyone helps his neighbor and says to his brother, "Be strong." The craftsman strengthens the goldsmith, and he who smooths with the hammer, him who strikes the anvil, saying of the soldering, "It is good." And they strengthen it with nails, so that it cannot be moved. But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the offspring of Abraham, my friend, you whom I took from the ends of the earth and called from its farthest corners, saying to you, "You are my servant. I have chosen you and not cast you off. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Behold, all who are incensed against you shall be put to shame and confounded. Those who strive against you shall be as nothing and shall perish. You shall seek those who contend with you, but you shall not find them. Those who war against you shall be as nothing at all. For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not. I am the one who helps you. Fear not, you worm Jacob, you man of Israel. I am the one who helps you, declares the Lord. Your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. Behold, I make of you a threshing sledge, new, sharp, and having teeth. You shall thresh the mountains and crush them, and you shall make the hills like chaff. You shall winnow them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the tempest shall scatter them. And you shall rejoice in the Lord, in the Holy One of Israel you shall glory.
Amen. You're mute, Anne.
That's speaking to Jacob and Israel being the people that will come from Jacob. Because it's got, you know, at the start it goes Jacob and then Israel. Oh, Jacob, oh, Israel.
Yes, because you see, Jacob is the grandson of Abraham, who had the 12 sons. And God changed his name to Israel. That's where the word Israel comes from. It's actually Yasharel. Yasharel. But they get rid of the Yah and make it Israel. So it's what I say. The people today who'll think it's the land, the dirt. No, it's the people. It's the bloodlines again. So if I go to the top of it, why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel? Yeah, Israel is Jacob.
That's right.
And Israel are the children of Jacob, but they changed the name. He gives us a new name when we come to him. So that's his new name, is Israel.
But it also is the people, you know, like so it's like quite often the word you're going, oh, who's he talking to? Jacob, Israel. But it flips. It'd be quite good to do a study on when the name is used as Jacob and as Israel.
Yeah. I think when he contends with the angel, when he goes to meet his brother, that's when his name is changed to Israel. Because he
That's right,
wants the blessing. Give me the blessing. I want the blessing. I'm not moving until you give me the blessing.
That's right.
But yeah,
in the word, often it's like you kind of go, you're trying to work out who's actually been spoken about, because you've got Jacob specifically here, but also Israel is Jacob, but that's the people that came from Jacob as well.
yeah, it's the nation, I suppose. Hey, which we are all today. You know, we've been scattered abroad through the Caucasus Mountains, Europe, New Zealand, Australia, America, Canada. Yeah. The word worm that it uses, I've actually, my Bible's not with me right here, but it's not worm, it's a mistranslation. And I think it means like children of, or blessed children, or something like that. It's completely different to worm. I looked that up and I thought that doesn't fit. I'm trying to find where it is now. Excuse me going through it. Here we go now. Fear not, you worm.
No, yeah.
And it's not, it's complete, another, mistranslation.
What's the scripture there? What's the number? Isaiah 40, isn't it? Isaiah 41.
14. Yeah, 41 verse 14. Yeah, I should go get my Bible. I think it's in my room.
I'm just having a look at the oh, that's not going to give me the meaning of it. 14.
Yeah, it means something like it's something to do with the children. I can't remember exactly the correct. You've got a concordance there, but it doesn't mean worm, like a slithery thing in the ground.
So Isaiah 41:14.
Yes.
So in the blue letter Bible, it says, fear not, it does use the word worm, but I need to find it in the concordance and see what it says.
Go back to the Hebrew. Yeah, I've got it written there in what, as I said, in my Bible. I like this. Behold, I make of you a threshing sledge, new, sharp, having teeth. You shall thresh the mountains and crush them, and you shall make the hills like chaff. Now, that's not like physical mountains. It's things in your life. It's things in the world. And the wind shall carry them away. I just think of Psalm 1, the wicked, I like the chaff that are blown by the wind. I will hold you by your right hand. Fear not, I'm the one who helps you.
There's some beautiful promises in there, eh?
Yes. Those who yeah. Shall we go to the next one?
Yeah, sounds good.
This is John 8, chapter 8.
Truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. The Jews said to him, now we know that you have a demon. Abraham died, as did the prophets. Yet you say, if anyone keeps my word, he will never taste death. Mm-hmm. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who died, and the prophets died? Who do you make yourself out to be? Jesus answered, if I glorify myself, my glory is nothing. It is my Father who glorifies me, of whom you say, he is our God. But you have not known him. I know him. If I were to say that I do not know him, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him, and I keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. So the Jews said to him, you are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham? Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am.
It would put a spinner on them, wouldn't it? See, even back then, the seed of Satan was very, very involved in the synagogue and everything. Yeah.
It's effectively the spirit, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's operating in.
Yeah, because we knew, they all knew who he was, you see, because Mary, his mother, grew up in the temple there in Jerusalem. And she didn't want to get married when she went when she was 3, and then when she was 12, all the girls leave and they go to get married because they're coming into puberty. And Mary said, I'm not, I'm not leaving. I'm not getting married. I'm going to stay a virgin. That's because she knew that being a virgin was the highest, what do you call it? Was so important to God, highest sacrifice, the most highest precious gift that you could give to the Father as a young woman that's a virgin, and to live your life pure and untainted, as she would say, you know. And she didn't want that at all. And she caused quite a stir there because I was saying, well, you have to, you can't stay here. She's saying, well, I'm not. I am staying here. And her father, Joachim, had died. So, and her mother had remarried Anna. She had remarried Cleopas, and actually had another daughter called Mary. And then she actually adopted another girl called Mary, who was actually Mary from Magdala. So what people portray of her is a lie too. She was very, very set apart for Jesus. But anyway, because she knew Mary, and anyway, going on a different path there. But so they ended up having to put the word around all of Judea to get all the widows. Who's going to look after her? Let's get a widow. So they did that. And a long story cut short, Joseph acquired her. He didn't want to. He was 90 years of age at that time. He'd had his family. They'd all grown up pretty much, although Thomas was still young, but his wife had died. And there's a story to all of that. It's in my book, I, Mary. However, he acquired her. So everybody knew this, and Joseph had been a priest or worked in the temple. He was of the Judean line, but very involved in things happening there. Long story cut short, so when she got pregnant, they all knew the prophecies, and so so when Jesus came and he ended up being a high priest, he did that because there was no one else around, and it was put forward that I know a guy that actually would be the ultimate high priest, and they all agreed to go with what this guy says. And then he said, it's Yahushua, Jesus. And I said, yeah, well, okay. So they brought him in, and that's how that happened. I'm just cutting it really short, the story. There's a lot to it. So they knew who he was, and it's written in the Codex in the temple there in Jerusalem that Jesus, mother of Virgin Mary, father of God. His father was God and his mother was the Virgin Mary. And I've got records of it and transcripts of people saying that who he say he was. But if I say it to anybody, I'm going to be, I'm going to lose my whole career and I'll be ousted. So, there was that, that high, from the height of the temple, because of course they were infiltrated as well with Rome, that they're not to tell anyone or get it out who he is. So they all knew Sanhedrin. So that evil was still amongst those other people serving in the temple that should really have had a whole different heart to do that work. But it's just the way it all plays out, isn't it? It had to be that way for them to murder him, for him to rise from the dead and to be the everlasting high priest, who is now the high priest up in heaven in the temple up there. Were you going to say something, Mia?
No, I was just looking for the word worm. And I'm in the Bible Hub.
I think you've got to go to the concordance. Go to the Hebrew concordance for it, yeah.
He's also referred to as a maggot. How much less man, who is but a maggot and the son of man, but who is that of a worm?
That's disgusting.
But they're just little bits that I'm picking up as of no effectively not much, no importance.
Yeah, but it's wrong. It should be translated correctly. But we know who translated it. We know who put it together, don't we? And he was a Freemason and the like. And it's the most accurate compared to all these other nonsense Bibles that we've got these days. I went to Sunday church last Sunday, first time in about 15 years. And nobody took Bibles. And when they did say a scripture out of the Bible, it was these other translations. And I've been looking at my Bible, the King James, which has been older, and I'm thinking, it doesn't even say what it says in here. But this has been altered. I'm reading it going, no wonder the place is so mucked up. And people just don't know. Oh my gosh.
Righty potty, that was been good, thank you.
All good. Oh, well, that's the end of the reading. So I'll finish the recording now. Hang on, I'll just have to work out how to do that. And then we can just chat. Stop recording. Okay.